Caitlin. Thanks for joining me. I can assure you I won't be saying anything about myself.
To know Mike Furen is to know his father, cousin Al Furen. He was a real estate developer, but he started out owning some land in downtown St. Pete. It was called the Goose Pond, where they put up signs, "Come dump your garbage." He sold that land for the first real estate development in Florida for a shopping center called Central Plaza. He took that money, $350,000 in 1951, and bought the bottom rights to the bay for $60,000. And he developed an island called Vina del Mar, where Mike lived. I've known him practically all our lives. We grew up together, went to parochial school together. I was his roommate in college for 6 years and was best man in his wedding. Mike was absolutely probably one of the best students that the University of Florida ever had. We had compulsory ROTC in those days. That's the only subject in which he didn't make a straight A. And after that, he became Phi Beta Kappa. When he went to law school, he was Order of the Coif, which is the highest award that you can get in law school. And of course, he's been a very successful lawyer in Sarasota.
Mike does everything in a big way. He is judicious, he is tenacious, and he is loquacious. He chose Sarasota, has sand in his shoes as a Florida-born boy, made good in Sarasota. He is so smart. He saw the future growth in Sarasota and then spent his career focusing on development and all things development related. So as you look at this skyline, Mike has had a hand in so many of the developments, both here and much farther afield. I join everyone in celebrating Mike Furen.
We think of Mike as a very distinguished legal sort of character today. In the summer of 1969, he was a legal character then too, but he was a very good-looking young man with hair all the way over his collar, like to down here. He was always natty. I remember a tweed sport coat with leather elbow patches, but he was very hip, very cool for the late 60s.
I've been friends of Mike for a very long time, and it started when I pulled a thorn out of his paw. That was 42 years ago. And we've been friends ever since. He's a wonderful friend. And at the time that I started cutting his hair, we were both young, in our 30s. He had hair and I had hair.
I remember the first time I met Michael was in the summer of 1978. I was still in law school. And I just have this vivid picture of him when I met him. He was wearing that plaid suit that you might remember. Had the Prince Valiant haircut, the booming voice, the teeth, the big teeth. You know, sort of like a cross between Sonny Bono and a Tyrannosaurus Rex. but you know, Michael he's a presence. You know, when he's in the room, you know it.
That's right.
He's one of those people who just truly does have a presence and a charisma about him that is unique. You know, and of course, Mike was my primary mentor in the practice of law, particularly after Tom Eichert died. And I've had the office next to Mike for now, 30 some odd years. So I've seen every aspect of his behavior in the office.
And you've heard it also.
I've heard his behavior.
Say, Helen.
No.
Calling down.
He never said Helen.
Right.
There was a few expletives.
It was always preceded by something else.
Something else.
We'll leave that off. But my earliest recollections is that he would bring me in for an audience, at which time he would show me his notes, which I could not read at all. Handwritten notes. Did you have trouble reading?
I eventually learned to read his notes.
Hieroglyphics.
Yes.
Yes, and so sometime I'd come back with an answer, with a memo or something like that, and he said, "Didn't you read my notes?"
I remember going down when the Longboat Key Club was trying to get 400 more rooms, and I was supporting Michael Welly at the Longboat Key Club, and so I would go to all the different hearings, and Michael was actually on the other side, and a couple times we walked in together, and he knew I was supporting the other side, and he was just absolutely It was one of the most civil, wonderful, intelligent discourse that I've ever seen, with two parties so, really believing in that their side was right.
I've known Michael for over 30 years, and we have done battle in virtually every land use venue that you could think of, including administrative hearings and county commissions and planning commissions, zoning ordinance amendments, you name it, we've gone head to head. And in all that time, despite the fact I cannot think of a single instance when we were on the same side of the issue, I can also not think of a single instance where Michael did not treat me with the utmost respect, despite the fact that I was oftentimes disagreeable and objectionable. Mike took the high ground.
I've ever met a lawyer who, as a practical matter, thinks out of the box and is less constrained by what the norm is than Michael J. Furen.
I think that's right. Michael is one of the great legal minds that I've ever encountered in all my years of practice, and I've learned a lot from him. He's one of those guys, he doesn't miss anything. And some of the ideas he comes up with are a little off the wall sometimes, but you have to sift through that.
It's a breath of fresh air for people that say, you know what, it's not always what the law is, it's what you can make the law. And Michael comes from the standpoint that, you know what, don't get constrained by that. Look at it, what could the law be? Let's see if we can make some law here if we need to.
Michael has, I think, one of the most creative minds available in the land use industry. He created, to my mind, the land use trade-off mechanism at Longboat Key, one still in use, but so far as I know, he's the only person who's been successful at using it, creating huge land use values for some of his clients. He created something called 2050 settlements in our 2050 plan in July 2001. It's a unique creation. It's one we use in our company, and so I have a lot to thank from Mike for a lot of things he's done starting in 1969.
I've had a connection with Mike, friendship and legal, since about 1965. And it's always been pleasant. And I luckily have never been opposite Mike on any legal matters. So I've enjoyed the very plus side of this relationship.
Mike came in at the last moment to go up and do the closing, etc. I get this call, and Michael, what's the problem? Come on down here. So I have to go down to his hotel room at 11:30 at night when I'm in bed and whatever, and he is totally ripped up with his hieroglyphics from one end to the other. I literally stayed up until 6 o'clock in the morning trying to put this stuff back together so that we would have a closing. And then it wasn't good enough. We had to redo it again all morning from the hotel rooms and go to the closing. That's probably not one of my funnier Mike Furens, but it was his way of, it had to be perfect.
And then the last piece of it is the work ethic you have. There's nobody works harder than you, Mike. And when you put those three qualities together, passion and commitment, the intellect that you have, and the work ethic that you have brought to your life, you have touched a lot of people in very important, profound ways.
Mike Furen has been my good friend and great attorney for some 40 years. I don't have to define what a good friend is, but here's a definition of a great attorney. Robert Townsend, the CEO of Avis, wrote a management book back in the 70s called Up the Organization. And he had a short section on attorneys. And he said, your attorney should have your corporate seal with him at all times, and you should have his private home phone number. Mike Furen gave me his personal home phone number and his email, and so Mike Furen and I are in touch 24/7. Well, unless it's a Saturday afternoon and his beloved Gators are playing.
Yeah, well, the Gators are a pretty big part of Michael J. Furen's life. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And always has been.
Yeah. Yep, it has. Yep. Right. There were a lot of weeks where I think the mood of the house was
Slightly altered.
slightly altered by the outcome of the football games.
Correct. Absolutely. Well,
So-
there were all those fun times when we actually went to Gainesville and we were walking down the sidewalk and he would scream out in his very baritone, strong voice.
Booming voice.
Booming voice. Yes. Go Gators. As we're, of course, we're in Gainesville, so everybody loved it.
Well,
we loved
and they're also just sitting in a restaurant
it. Well, this is true.
Yeah.
out of the blue.
Oh, absolutely. It was never planned. It was just like you're having a regular, normal conversation, and then, go Gators!
One of the wonderful things about Dad is that he does everything big.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
does it with all of his heart, and I really appreciate that about
Absolutely.
him a lot.
The biggest thing that stands out for me is when I was diagnosed with lupus, and he wasn't satisfied of the care I was getting here in Sarasota, and he made all the arrangements and flew me out to LA to go to Cedars-Sinai. He wouldn't let Mom go. He bought out the row of seats so I could lay down the entire time. Took me on my first limo ride so I could go see the Hollywood sign and go down Rodeo Drive. Couldn't shop, but I got to go down Rodeo Drive and stayed with me the entire week. I was at Cedars-Sinai, and it was the biggest thing, and still to this day means more than anything to me.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Sexy. Happy birthday to you.
But his clients were what were fabulous.
Right,
You know,
fantastic, so many of
so
them were
many
there.
of them that
And the ones that were in on it, well, he was upstairs in the office and then everyone gathered in the lobby.
right.
And Jerry Ancella's one client was in on it and they had a big meeting upstairs in the conference room and he knew what time to bring them down, so they all went down in the elevator together.
Well, I remember when the elevator opened,
Opened.
Marilyn Monroe was there.
Right.
And we were all there to say surprise, and I have pictures of his face.
I was afraid he was gonna have a heart attack.
Well, that was what worried me too.
Well, back to the Gators, because since I was born in Gainesville and
That's
my
what it's all about.
blood is orange and blue, one of my fond memories is being out with Dad on the 50-yard line accepting the recognition award that he got. And that was
It's
just,
just
it was a lot of
amazing.
fun.
That
So
is
with
amazing.
that, I want to say something.
Go Gators!
In closing, I would like to thank the Argus Foundation for honoring me with this incredible award.
You're all set, Mike.
Thanks, Caitlin.